Hare Krishna all. So let us begin today's session. So today, on behalf of Bhaktivedanta Club IIT Kanpur, and as a part of this evening lecture series, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Chahat Upreti. Many of you must be knowing about him because he's the person who introduced you how to use our holidays effectively during the summer, and many of you must have watched his recording. So today he will be here. We have come up with very interesting topic, but some of you may be new or in between you must have joined. So in just brief, I will introduce about Chahat Upreti. So Chahat Upreti sir has come. He is the Y11 student from IIT Kanpur in BSBE department. He completed his dual degree from IIT Kanpur, and currently he is doing his Ph.D. From University of Texas, Dallas. So today we have come up with very exciting topic. Yesterday, Piyush sir was describing different gifts. What are the possible gifts one can expect after reading Bhagavad Gita? So in that, while describing gift of empowerment, he took name of few personalities which cannot be duplicated. So in that, Einstein, different names came, and in that, name of Srila Prabhupada also came. In everyday morning, we are doing book reading. So that book which we are reading, the author of that book is Srila Prabhupada. So, and also the Bhagavad Gita as it is copy which we are following, that is also written by, means its commentary is given by Srila Prabhupada. So who is this personality? What dedication, what sacrifice he has done for us? So all these details will come to know by today's talk. So without taking much time, I would like to hand over to Chahat sir. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Jivnesh Prabhu. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisheshi Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine. So welcome everybody to our session this evening. I've been seeing the sessions that you've been having here in the evenings. They are so wonderful, and all the speakers have been so extraordinary, so talented, so realized, so spiritually advanced. So it's really a great opportunity that you are able to hear from them every single evening. I, on the other hand, I'm just a very small child in front of those people who have spoken to you and who will speak to you in the coming days. But the person that I'm going to talk to you about today, he is, he is above everybody. He's above all of us. He's the most inspiring person that you will ever come to know about. So therefore, even though I am speaking, but because I'm speaking about Srila Prabhupada, I hope you'll get something out of this talk. Okay. So so today we'll discuss a little bit about Srila Prabhupada. We'll get to know about him, who he is, what he has done, why does he matter to us. And before I say anything about him, I'll share one small video clip and then I will talk, okay? So just give me 1 minute. Okay.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 One more time, real loud. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Ho! Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
So what you saw there was a brief glimpse of the things that are going on right now all over the world in the society of devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement, right? You must have seen people from like dozens and dozens of countries and so many different projects, so many different celebrations, Krishna being worshipped in every single country of this world, and with so much joy and fervor. You know, all of that that you see, that you have seen here, all of that is really because of one person, Srila Prabhupada. So therefore, it's very important to recognize who he is. Like we know about Krishna Bhakti in India, right? A lot of us, even before coming in contact with Bhagavad Gita, maybe some of us were already, we had some inclination towards Krishna, and we have seen some Krishna TV series or Mahabharata and things like that. And in general, for a lot of people in India, they have some inherent some devotion. But and it was the case 50 years ago also. 50 years ago, before Srila Prabhupada did what he did, we had devotees, but only in India. And they were all practicing, in their own little way, in different parts of the world, nothing solid, nothing consolidated. There were a few devotees all over India who were genuinely practicing spiritual life, right? But what Srila Prabhupada did was many things. First of all, what he did was bring out the spiritual knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in a systematic manner. Systematic manner meaning that anybody who comes in contact with this knows how to start, how to begin this journey of spiritual life, right? And how to progress through it. So he systematized all of this knowledge. Then he actually spread this knowledge all over the world by himself, right? All over the world by himself. And after that, after he spread this knowledge, he actually trained the devotees these people who had no idea about anything about Krishna to how to become pure devotees. And now many of those disciples, they are from countries like America or Poland or Russia or countries in Africa, and they are much more well versed in the understanding of Bhagavad Gita than 99% of our Indian population, right? So this is something extraordinary. So therefore, it's very important to realize, try to be more inquisitive about this personality, Srila Prabhupada, and try to see what we can learn from him, how we can be inspired by him. So I'll first tell you very briefly his biography, like his life milestones, and then we'll go more deeper into certain aspects of his life that will be inspiring to us. So he was born in Calcutta in 1896, and he was born in a very nice devotee family. So from his birth only, he was engaged in devotion to Krishna. Then in 1922, when he was 26 years old, he met a wonderful devotee of Krishna named Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who then became his guru. Then, so in 1933, he took initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and then just before his guru passed from this world, he gave this instruction to Srila Prabhupada that whenever you get an opportunity, print books and speak about this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in the English language. Because at that time, English, we were under the British rule, right? So English was not as popular in India as it is now. And but still, people knew that English was the lingua franca of the world, basically. It's the most important language, right? And Srila Prabhupada he had good education, so he knew English. So as soon as his guru saw him, he said, you should preach about this message in English, right? And he was taken aback. Why are you telling me this? Like, I've just met you. Why are you talking about this? But he later realized that his guru saw that this person can actually make a difference. So he got this instruction that whenever you get an opportunity, preach in English and print books. And then his guru passed away. Then in 1944, he starts writing a magazine known as the Back to Godhead magazine, where he writes everything by himself, different articles about spiritual concepts. And this magazine he wrote completely on his own. He published it by himself, and he even distributed it by himself. It was completely his own job. There was nobody to help him. He would write in let's say Jhansi, and then he would go to Delhi, get it printed, come back, distribute it. And he lived like this for some time. Then in 1959, he took sannyas. He took sannyas in 1959. And all of this time, he was still meditating on this instruction that his guru had given him, that preach in the English language. And if possible, go out of India, preach in the Western countries. Because in the Western countries at that time, nobody had even thought that people could take up Krishna consciousness. People would be interested in reading Bhagavad Gita. Maybe there were one or two people, some scholars who had access to Bhagavad Gita and they read it and they appreciated it. But in general, that these Westerners would appreciate Bhagavad Gita not just in an intellectual kind of way, but take it to their heart so that their lives are transformed and they become devotees full time. This was something that nobody had even thought of. So nobody even tried. Srila Prabhupada's guru had actually sent a few people to Europe just to see, if some people might be interested. And all of them, they were all big sannyasis, these people who had gone there, but none of them met any success. It's funny, one of these people whom Srila Prabhupada's guru had sent to Europe, he was somewhere in Europe and he talks to this man. He was a very respectable person. Um, and he talks to him about, this is Bhagavad Gita, if you read this, it will be very nice to you. And then this man, this English gentleman, he asks this devotee, uh, sir, can you make me a Brahmin? He's born in Europe, but he thinks that becoming a Brahmin is a very nice thing. So he asks, can you make me a Brahmin? And then this person says, this devotee, he says, yes, I can make you a Brahmin. You just have to follow 4 principles: no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, and no intoxication. If you follow these, I will make you a Brahmin. And then this English gentleman says, well, if I give this up, how will I live? This is what all my life is, right? So thank you very much. And then he left. So it was unimaginable for devotees to think that people would seriously take up spiritual life. So people, they tried, but they didn't meet any success, and then they came back. But Srila Prabhupada had been given this instruction that try to preach in English language, try to preach outside of India. So he had been meditating on this instruction throughout all this time, ever since he got this instruction in 1920s, all the way up till late 1950s and 1960s. How can he do this? He tried in India. He tried to. He made something called as the League of Devotees. Basically creating some structure so that devotees can come together and propagate a spiritual way of life. But he didn't meet much success. Even Srila Prabhupada, he didn't meet with much success. So he thought that, well, in India, really people are not interested at all. But because my spiritual master, my guru, has told me that I should go to the Western countries, I should try. I didn't meet with much success in India, but I will try. I will keep trying, and I will make an attempt to try it in the Western countries. So even up until this point, he was selling his magazine, Back to Godhead magazine, all by himself. And then he was trying, to meet with different rich people who are also devotees who could help him to come to the West. Because obviously he didn't have any money. He was a sannyasi. He didn't have any money, but somehow he had to come to the West because his guru had told him, please try to go there and preach. So he was trying with so many people. He went, nobody wanted to help him. Then finally, there was one lady, Sumati Morarji. She was also a nice devotee of Krishna. And after Srila Prabhupada literally begged her for a very long time, sitting at her stairs of her place for 5 hours, she said finally, okay, I will arrange for you. Although she told him that that Swamiji, you are an old man, you will die there. It is really harsh weather. You don't have anything. You don't have any resources. You don't have any relatives. Nothing. You have nothing. What will you do there? You will die there. And at this point, Srila Prabhupada was 69 years old. But Srila Prabhupada was insistent that I have to go. My guru has given me this order. I have to do this. So she said, okay, she finally agreed. And then she gave him a ticket on a steamer boat. So steamer boat are basically these luggage boats, basically. These are ships, not even exactly ships, but steamers through which luggage is transferred. It's not really for people to go. He didn't get a flight ticket. He got a ticket in this steamer boat. And it took like more than a month for him to get from India to America. But he was happy that somehow he's able to get this opportunity. And while he was on the steamer, he got 2 heart attacks on the way. While he was on the sea, he got 2 heart attacks. And he realized that if he gets another one, he will not survive. But still, even there on his steamer boat, he was sure that his guru wants him to do this. He is doing this to please Krishna. And he really, people are suffering so much in this entire world. Why cannot, I give them this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, of spiritual knowledge? Their lives will be transformed. I can do this. I want to do this. No, doesn't matter how much inconvenience I have to face. I have to do this. So he was insistent like that. So he kept on the steamer. He would write diaries while he was on the steamer. I'll share a small passage from that later on. And in those diaries, you see how much totally dependent he is on Krishna. He doesn't have anybody there. He doesn't even have money. He went to America with a total of 40 rupees. 40 rupees. And so you can imagine, what is 40 rupees? You know. So he had nothing, but he was totally dependent on Krishna. And somehow he arrived in America, in Boston. And when he arrived, he didn't know whether he should turn left or right. He didn't know anybody. But somehow he arrived here. He got some help. There was one person who said that he can sponsor him in America for 2 months. That's it. So he came and he tried a few things. Initially, all he did when he came to America was just watch, just examine, just observe how people live in America, because it was totally foreign to him. He doesn't know anything about America. So initially, he was just observing, because he knew that he had a very, very important mission. So he cannot just start just like that. Just like he has been doing in India. He has to have, a proper plan. So he was observing the people. What kind of things do they appreciate? Are they spiritual? Would they be willing to hear from an Indian person? How much receptive are they to spiritual knowledge? He was observing like this. And obviously, there were a lot of difficulties that he had to face, but he realized, and the people who were sponsoring him, they were in some city in Pennsylvania, Butler, and it's a very small city. Nobody really knows that city much. And he realized, if I stay here, nothing is going to happen. Although my sponsorship is here in this city, it's not really going to help me because there is hardly anybody here. I should go to New York. In the entire world, the number one country is America. So he went to America. And in New York, the number one city is New York. So he said, I have to go to New York. That's the most important city. If their people will accept this knowledge, then others will also follow. I have to go. So he packed up his bag and he left. And the people who were sponsoring him, they were so concerned about him, because in New York, there is literally nobody to help him. But he was determined. So then he went to New York and he sets up, he just sits down in a park and he starts chanting. That's it. He sits down in the park and he starts chanting. That's it. And as he is chanting for hours, he would sit and he would chant for 3 hours straight on his own. Just through his chanting, a lot of people got attracted. They would come to him there in that park. That park is still there, Tompkins Square Park. We went there. When Sir Leela Purushottam Prabhu, he came here, he took us there. So there is a tree in that park. So under that tree, Srila Prabhupada would sit and he would just do kirtan. And just by that kirtan, so many people would come. And now that tree is still there, and you can see there is a plaque in front of that tree. It says the Hare Krishna tree, because literally the Hare Krishna movement started there just through his chanting. He attracted a lot of people. They were attracted by this chanting process, because obviously they didn't know anything about it, but somehow they felt that this is transformational. Something is happening to me. So they would join in his kirtan. They would start chanting, dancing. And then Srila Prabhupada would say, okay, I'm living in this very small, small place. It was less than an apartment where he was living. It was on all sides, he was surrounded by drunkards and drug addicts. It was the the filthiest part of New York, basically. It's called the Bowery. So he was staying there, and then he invited these people that please you come here, we will have some discussion. So then he started having Bhagavad Gita discussion at his place, 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the evenings. And then some people started coming and started liking his message. Again, he was speaking completely on Bhagavad Gita. No diluting the message just because these are American people. No, he would never dilute the message. Very strongly, he would speak. If you get a chance, you should try to listen to lectures of Srila Prabhupada. And this has been my experience. I kind of made this New Year's resolution this year that I would listen to a certain number of lectures by Prabhupada every week. And it has been my experience that no matter what your consciousness is, what you're thinking, anything that you may be, let's say, attached to or troubled by, your mind is all over the place. If you hear Srila Prabhupada's lecture, just one lecture, after that lecture, you will feel so spiritually enlivened and focused. It's amazing. So Srila Prabhupada would always, speak like that, very, very purely. He would speak very straightforward and very convincingly. So a lot of people, they started liking it. Oh, this is very nice. And then Srila Prabhupada was not just some lecture giver. Oh, you come and hear from me and that's it. No, he wanted to give them a way of life. So he would feed them. He would cook all of the meals himself. He would feed them, like he would serve them food. And then after they were done, he would wash all the dishes also himself. Here is a sannyasi and, pure devotee of Krishna. And these are just some random American people, drug addicts, smokers, always drinkers. And he is washing their plates every single day. He's feeding them and he's washing their plates. But because he knew that all he has to give them is this process of Krishna consciousness, and and just through this process of Krishna consciousness they will be transformed. He had this strong conviction, so he didn't mind doing all of this service. But slowly people, their consciousness started changing. That who is this person? Like, he's doing everything for us. He is giving us this amazing knowledge. He's giving us this amazing food, and he has all the time in the world to talk to us. We should try to help him a little bit. Finally, after a long time, they realized maybe we should help him a little bit. So they started helping him in a little bit cooking and cleaning, and tried to find him a good a decent place for these programs. And in this way, slowly the Krishna consciousness movement started growing. This is how Krishna consciousness movement really started, from these extremely humble beginnings in the most filthy part of New York. Srila Prabhupada doing everything on himself, trying to spread this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita on his own to people who have no knowledge about it, who have no idea of the culture, who have no respect for these principles. He did it all on his own, alone. So then slowly this movement was growing. After New York, Srila Prabhupada, some of his these students, they went to San Francisco to try to open a center there. Then some went to Montreal, and in this way, Srila Prabhupada would send them. He would train these people nicely, and then he would send them to a different place and say, start a center there. Because it's not just about us trying to getting these benefits from spiritual life. Of course, we want that. We want to practice nicely. We get the benefits that spiritual life has to give, but we also want to share, right? That was Srila Prabhupada's whole point of going to America, to share this message to as many people as possible. So he would send these disciples of him to these different places, and then he would go there after them, to try to inspire people. And he even taught them how to lead a regulated life. Things like waking up early, having a program in the morning, having a regulated amount of reading of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam every day, and then going out and doing something for Krishna. Go out on the streets, chant, so that people would be attracted. At least they can hear the holy names. And in this way, people became full-time devotees, not just part-time, that they would come in the evening and listen to some Bhagavad Gita. Full-time devotees. And in this way, the movement grew. And then he sent a few of his disciples then from America to London to start a center there. And there were 3 couples whom he sent. And these 3 couples, they had never gone out of America. They had never done any preaching. They had themselves just heard, tried to understand Krishna consciousness. And now Srila Prabhupada is telling them, go to this different country and start the center there. Just imagine, if somebody tells you to do this, okay, now you have been, learning Bhagavad Gita nicely, little bit for a month or so. Now you go to Africa and spread this message of Bhagavad Gita there. Just leave everything and go there and spread this message there. Just imagine. But these people, the amount of love that they had for Srila Prabhupada, they were very, very happy to do that. And they were empowered by Srila Prabhupada how to do it. So these 3 these 3 couples, they went to London, and Srila Prabhupada told them, shoot for the highest, shoot for the biggest aim. So they realized, the biggest phenomenon at that time in the world were a rock band called the Beatles that you may or may not have heard of. They were like the number 1 on all charts, like the record charts, like music charts, for years and years, and all over the world. So they were like, just like you would have some big celebrity in India, like maybe Shah Rukh Khan or something. They were like the Shah Rukh Khan of the world. They were so popular. So these devotees realized that, okay, if we have to do something big, then we should try to engage these Beatles. And this was unimaginable, because Beatles were these, really successful, the most successful group in the world, and these are 3 couples who know nothing about England, who don't have any money, nothing. But just being inspired by Srila Prabhupada, they thought, let us try. So every few weeks or so, they would make prasadam, a nice prasad, and then they would leave it at the office of the Beatles. And then they would keep keeping this prasadam like that. And then finally, one day, after many weeks like that, one day, one of the Beatles, he asked, who is these people, who they're sending such wonderful prasad, I want to meet them. So just like that, one of these devotees, they met George Harrison, who was one of those 4 Beatles. He met, and then he struck a friendship. And then Srila Prabhupada, guided this devotee how to cultivate the Beatles into also becoming devotees. Just think about it. Like, let's say Shah Rukh Khan is the biggest, in India, and somebody tells you, well, you should try to make Shah Rukh Khan a wonderful devotee, and he should understand Bhagavad Gita, and then he should spread the message of Bhagavad Gita. So something like that, and in the Europe, basically most people are atheist, so to try to do that is even more difficult. But somehow or the other, these devotees were able to cultivate nicely George Harrison into a devotee. And then George Harrison also met Srila Prabhupada, and he encouraged him to make songs, to create songs for Krishna. He created many songs for Krishna. And because he was at that position, these songs were heard all over the world. And they actually reached the top, like the first position, second position, third position in terms of the number of records. So sold, records sold. So millions of people heard the holy names, the names of Krishna through this method. So Srila Prabhupada was like this. He would encourage and empower everybody. Um, and then in this way, slowly, he spread the movement all over the world, not just America, but all over the world. In almost every major country, he went personally, and he inspired people. And so now, just so this was just a brief introduction about Srila Prabhupada. Not so brief. We've already taken much of our time, but I'll just share a little few more things. I've made this small PPT. Just quickly go through that to show some aspects of his life. Um, so let's see. Um, so this is Srila Prabhupada. The books that you have been reading, Bhagavad Gita as it is, for example, On the Way to Krishna that you have been reading in the morning, all of them were written by him. So, one of his biggest contributions were his books. Bhagavad Gita that you are reading, Srimad Bhagavatam, and almost every book that he wrote, they were highly respected by scholars around the world. So you can see here, these are some appreciations for Bhagavad Gita. So many of them, if you just open Bhagavad Gita as it is, you'll find, all of them. And these are some appreciations for Sri Bhagavatam. And every book that he wrote it in a way, first of all, in a very lucid manner, meaning a very, very clear and simple English. There are lots of editions of Bhagavad Gita that if you start to open them to read, you'll not understand half of it just because it's written in such a convoluted manner, such high posh English. Srila Prabhupada's books were extremely lucid because he knew that this is for the general mass of people. This is not just to impress some academician. No, this is for the general mass of people. They have to be able to understand this message. So he wrote extremely simply, always to the point. He wouldn't beat around the bush in his books, to the point, and very authoritative. I'm sure if you have seen Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam or any of his books, even On the Way to Krishna, he would always um, uh, support his arguments with verses from the scriptures. He would never, because everything that he would say, it would have authority. So he would never say things that are just his own imagination, always with authority. So he'll always quote verses, and he would say that quoting verses is so important, just like in a court. In a court, the lawyers have to quote the Constitution, for example, that, oh, this is what Constitution says, this is what the law says. Similarly, when we are speaking anything about spiritual life, we cannot just say from our own minds anything. It has to be backed up by what the Shastra has said. So his books are always like that. So this is a little bit about his books. Then a little bit about his daily life, I'll say. So during the day, as I told him, he was involved in basically spreading this message of Bhagavad Gita, spreading the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. So as you can see here on the left, he would hold a lot of press conferences. He will invite a lot of people, talk to them. Dignitaries. He would talk to them to try to spread this message, to try to impress upon the respectable people of the world the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So he would do that during the day, and then he would also hold these huge festivals. And this is a picture from a Rath Yatra festival, I believe, in London. So before Srila Prabhupada, Rath Yatra was held, as you may know, only in Jagannath Puri, where the original Jagannath deities are there once a year. But Srila Prabhupada, he introduced the Rath Yatra festival in every major city of the world, because maybe a lot of people would not come to the temple. But the point of Rath Yatra is that the Lord himself comes out on the road so that he can, give his darshan to everybody. So he started Rath Yatra festivals in all the major cities of the world, and hundreds of thousands of people would come to these festivals. You cannot see this in this picture, but literally there are hundreds of thousands of people here. No, so these are some of the things he's doing during the day. He's managing the entire ISKCON institution, doing so many things. And then at night, he would sleep for 2 hours, and then he would wake up at 11 p.m. And then throughout the rest of the night, from 11 p.m. until like 4 a.m., he would be translating Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the night. He's sitting here, as you can see in this picture, all alone. He has his Bhagavatam here. He is translating it from Sanskrit to English, and writing commentaries onto that. And this he would do throughout the night. While everybody else was sleeping, he would sleep for 2 hours. He would wake up. Every single night, doesn't matter where he is in the world, he would get up. Throughout the night, he would work on translating Srimad Bhagavatam and writing the purports, writing the commentaries, writing the different books that now we are reading. So every single moment of his life, he completely dedicated to the service of Krishna. Then a little bit about his, compassionate nature. So as you can see here on the picture in the left, he really did not mind who were the people who were coming to them. He was trying to spread this message. Like, for example, what we are having here in IIT Kanpur, the Bhagavad Gita sessions that Sir has, Dr. Lakshmidhar Behera. Who are the people coming here? It's the IITK students, and we all feel very happy that IITK students who have some brain, who have some thinking capability, they are taking interest. That's wonderful. But for Srila Prabhupada, at least in the beginning, all the people who came were basically drug addicts, smokers, drinkers. But he did not mind. He spent all of his time with them. When you hear interviews of these people, of these devotees now, who are these wonderful devotees now, and they tell about their time with Srila Prabhupada, they always say that he always had all the time in the world, for him, for them, right? So this was his compassionate nature. And then also there is this nice on the picture on the right, you can see some people are having food. So there's a nice story about this, also a sign of his compassion. So this was in Mayapur. It's a city in West Bengal, where Srila Prabhupada built a huge temple. So one day, while after prasadam, like after breakfast prasadam, after all the devotees had breakfast, they would throw these pattals, these plates made of leaves. They would throw it out, right, in the dustbin. And then Srila Prabhupada saw from his window of his room that small children, really poor children, they are coming there at the dustbin and trying to take these pattals that people have thrown away and trying to get whatever little bit leftover food may be on there. And while they are doing this, they have to fight against the dogs who also want the same food. And when he saw this, Srila Prabhupada became so, he had so much sorrow. He started crying, seeing this situation. And then he said that from now on, make sure, he told his disciples, make sure that nobody in a 10-mile radius of any ISKCON temple will go hungry. Nobody in a 10-mile radius of the ISKCON temple should go hungry. So that started this Food for Life program. And now it has become the biggest provider of nutritious meals throughout the world. Every single day, more than 20 lakh plates of prasadam is distributed throughout the world by devotees. It's the biggest program. There are so many other food relief programs and such, but the devotees, they are so much more enthusiastic that they are. It's the biggest program, and they're not just giving them any food; they're actually giving them prasadam. So therefore, it's food for the body, but more importantly, it's also food for the soul, because just by eating prasadam, one makes spiritual progress. So this is again just one of the examples of his compassion. There are so many. So this is not a comprehensive kind of presentation on Srila Prabhupada. I'm just bringing out some points so that we are able to understand his nature. Then another important aspect of his life was training, right? Srila Prabhupada, obviously, he was a pure devotee, but the people that he was teaching to, they were these Westerners. They knew nothing. Literally, they knew nothing. So he had to train them in every single aspect. For example, he trained them how to worship the deities. As you can see in this picture, he's worshipping the deities, doing puja, and these people obviously know nothing. So he's teaching them how to do it. He's teaching them how to offer dandavat pranam, obeisances to the deities, to Krishna, so that others can and see from his example. He taught them how to cook food. They didn't even know how to cook food properly. So a lot of time he spent just to teach them how to cook food, how to cook prasadam. And he himself was an expert cook. He often, when nobody else could make anything, he would himself cook. He would cook like 10 different items in 45 minutes. Right? This is unimaginable. If any of you have ever tried to cook, I don't know if you have, but Srila Prabhupada was an amazing cook as well, and he would teach them. And then he also taught them how to play the instruments, instruments like the mridang, kartal, things that you need for kirtan. He taught them how to play these instruments. He was expert, but these people were not. So he taught them how to play these instruments as well. So what I'm trying to show here is that it's not just giving a class on Bhagavad Gita. He has to teach them how to live Bhagavad Gita, right? So he has to teach them every aspect of devotional service, every aspect of it. And he did it very, very happily and again and very perfectly. Then a little bit about his empowerment, how he would empower people, because it's again very important that, okay, Srila Prabhupada is doing all these great things, but he wants that, this movement of living by the principles of spiritual life, it should keep going, even after him. So he has to empower people so that they can, first of all, practice nicely, and then they can also start teaching how to do it. So he was very, very expert at empowering people. So for example, this picture that you see here, it's a picture from ISKCON London. And I already told you the story. He inspired these 3 couples who to go to a different country and start a center with no resources at all. So he empowered like that. This is a picture of Srila Prabhupada with one of the Beatles, George Harrison. That is this person here. And he empowered, as I already mentioned, George Harrison to write songs for Krishna. Imagine, if there is some very big popular song artist in India, and you tell him, first of all, getting to have a conversation with such a person is very, very difficult. But even if you did, convincing that now you start writing about Krishna, now you start writing songs on Krishna, and that is how you should do your singing career. Who would agree to your proposal? But Srila Prabhupada, he could convince, because just through his purity. So he convinced George Harrison to write songs for Krishna, and those songs, as I mentioned, they were global hits, so that millions of people got to hear the names of Krishna. Then this is an example of, this picture is a picture of Srila Prabhupada in Russia. And the story of Russia at that time was very interesting, because at that time it was USSR, and there was an iron curtain, meaning that it was very hard to even get inside Russia. Forget about spreading, spiritual knowledge, because they were communists, total atheists. So, but Srila Prabhupada really wanted to go to Russia, because he knew that, Russian people, they can also become devotees. Just think about him. He would look at the globe of the world. He would be sitting and he would look at the globe of the world, and he think, okay, now we should go here and spread Krishna consciousness in this country, and then in this country. This was his mood and his power. So he wanted to go to Russia, and it was very difficult. So he somehow corresponded with one professor in Russia, and he got 5 days, just 5 days to be in Russia, and then he had to immediately leave. And even when he was there, it was not allowed for him to meet anybody. No, no. He was there, only he will talk to this professor, and that's it. But somehow, just by some coincidence, some Krishna's arrangement, there was this one person who was able to bypass all of these security things, and he was able to come in contact with Srila Prabhupada. He was able to meet him. And then Srila Prabhupada spent basically all of his time of these 5 days with this person, and gave him all of this knowledge, not just bookish knowledge, but actually practical knowledge that he would need to then become an empowered devotee himself. So he empowered that person in less than 5 days with all of the knowledge that he would need for the rest of his life. And then he also initiated that person. His name was Ananta Shanti Das. He got this new name. He was a Russian person. And then this one person, whom Srila Prabhupada met for a few days in Russia, this one person, he spread Krishna consciousness to thousands of people later in Russia. And now the situation is such that Russia is one of the leading countries in the world in terms of practice of Krishna consciousness. Leading countries. If you go to any of our holy places like Vrindavan or Mayapur, you will find so many Russian devotees there now. And to think, like before Srila Prabhupada, that you would find people from Russia, people from China, people from Slovakia, people from England, people from Africa, they would be coming to Vrindavan. It was unimaginable. It was totally, nobody could even imagine this. And now it is happening. Just because Srila Prabhupada was insistent and he wanted to spend a few days in Russia, he empowered one person, and now it is hundreds of thousands of people there are practicing Krishna consciousness. So this was the level of his empowerment. And this last picture, this third one here, it is, I don't know if you can see it, but they are these 5 devotees. You can see they have beadbacks, they are chanting, and they have tilak, and they are in these Western dress, like suit and tie. They are actually scientists. So this all of them are scientists. All of them had Ph.Ds at the time. And this is another very interesting aspect of Srila Prabhupada. He knew that, first of all, he was convinced that this process of Krishna consciousness, this spiritual knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, it is not a religious thing. It is not just a matter of faith. It is a science, meaning that it is systematic. If anybody would understand this and try to systematically apply it in their life, it will have results no matter who the person is. Secondly, he knew that even in our own Vedic tradition, and you have in a few previous of these evening sessions, I'm sure you have heard about this, how our Vedic science was so much developed as compared to the modern science, right? And so accurate. And all of this information is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada had full conviction that, yes, this is true. So he created this scientific wing of ISKCON known as the Bhaktivedanta Institute. And he encouraged them that you just focus on science. You just focus on science and try to use science to prove that what the scientific knowledge is there in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, it is accurate. He had this conviction, and that is what this institution has been doing, Bhaktivedanta Institution, up until now. And they have produced wonderful work trying to show how the scientific knowledge given in our Vedic texts is accurate and much more filled with information as compared to what the modern science has been able to find. And even our sir, Dr. Lakshmidhar Behra, he does a lot of research in conjunction with Bhaktivedanta Institute, a lot of research into the spiritual into the benefits, for example, of chanting. He has actually published scientific papers showing this. So this was another aspect of Srila Prabhupada, encouraging every person in his own way so that they can serve Krishna. Then a little bit about his nature. He could be the most fierce person, like the most heavy, when somebody would say something which is not in accordance with with the correct knowledge. Like somebody would make nonsense claims about something, so he would blast them, because he would not tolerate any nonsense. So this is, for example, one small snippet of that. Let's see if the audio will work. So
was incorrect, if something was misleading to Prabhupada, he would boldly speak out about it.
Why you have to accept birth? Why you have to accept death? Why you have to accept disease? Why you have to accept old age? These are the problems. These are the problems, and these problems can be solved in human form of life.
He was fearless and he was bold.
So basically, I don't know if you were able to hear this, but Srila Prabhupada was really hammering on this point that the real problems of life are these: birth, death, old age, disease. Why I had to accept these things. So powerfully he would speak, so that people can understand that these are the real problems of life. The real problems of life are not that you lost electricity or you don't have internet connection. The real problems of life are, why do I have to take birth? Why do I have to die? Why do I have to have disease? Why do I have to have old age? So he was very fierce when it came to the spiritual principles. He would never budge. And even in America, nobody, and the rest of the West, nobody follows these principles. Like everybody eats meat, everybody drinks, everybody smokes, everybody gambles, they have illicit sex. Everybody does this. But Srila Prabhupada's principles were strict: no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. Even here, he would not budge from these principles because he knew that spiritual life is based on these principles. So he was very concrete about these. But at the same time, he was also very gentle. Very gentle. You can see in this picture here, Srila Prabhupada is giving initiation to a woman disciple. And before Srila Prabhupada, this was not done. Women would not get initiation in India. In this line, in this parampara, they would not get initiation, any initiation, even Brahmin initiation, they would not get. But Srila Prabhupada was so liberal that he understood, that in the West, that and anywhere, nowadays, there is no difference. The men and women are all equally trying to, they are equally eligible to take to Krishna consciousness. So he was very, very liberal, and he gave his women disciples so many. He gave them initiation. He gave them so many responsibilities. He gave them so much care. Always he would protect them. He would always take care of them. Made sure that they would not come under any harm. They would always protected nicely. So this was his gentle nature also. Then a little bit about his devotion. Well, his devotion, well, there is no end to how much we can speak about his devotion. But I'll tell you just a few brief examples. One was, there was once a controversy. The controversy was, I don't know, something in 1972 or something, that some of his disciples within ISKCON, they somehow got this idea that Srila Prabhupada is the most important person. He is even more important than Krishna, and that Srila Prabhupada is God. They somehow got this idea. And these disciples who got this idea, somehow, they even started speaking like this, that, oh, Srila Prabhupada is God. And Srila Prabhupada he had always made sure in his books, he always had written this clearly, in his lectures, he had always spoken this clearly, that he was just a humble servant of Krishna. And anybody who claims to be God, he himself is a dog. So he was very, very strong on this point. But somehow these people got this idea, they started thinking like this. When Srila Prabhupada came to hear about this, that some of his disciples are now thinking that he is God, or treating like this and speaking like this. Srila Prabhupada immediately said that those disciples, immediately throw them out of ISKCON. I don't want them within the institution anymore. He was so strong, but also so fixed on his principle. These people are trying to, these disciples are somehow trying to give him a higher position, but Srila Prabhupada knows that this is not his position. Very, very clear on this matter, and he throws them away so that other people may not become contaminated by this nonsense idea. He threw them away. Of course, later on, these people, they realized their mistake, and then they apologized, and then Srila Prabhupada brought them back. But this is an example of his devotion, that he's not concerned with, honor, prestige, etc. He's concerned with people getting the right spiritual knowledge and living their life based on that. Another example was that, like many of you may know Gita Press, right? Gita Press is a very, very huge distributor of spiritual books in India. And one of the founders of Gita Press, his name was Hanuman Prasad Poddar. If you have read any Gita Press books, you may have even seen his name. So Hanuman Prasad Poddar, he had a very nice friendly relationship with Srila Prabhupada, because he realized also what Srila Prabhupada has done all over the world. It's unimaginable. So he had a very nice friendship with Srila Prabhupada, to the extent that there was this there is this rule, very important rule within the publications of Gita Press Gorakhpur, that nobody would be glorified in these books. No human being would be glorified in the books of Gita Press Gorakhpur while that person was still living. Like they will glorify about God, about Krishna, Ram, but they will not glorify a human being as long as that human being was still living, still present on this planet. And in their entire run of Gita Press Gorakhpur, only one time they broke this rule, when they glorified Srila Prabhupada in one of their books while Srila Prabhupada was alive, because they realized who Srila Prabhupada is. So then this text that you see here, this is another example of his devotion. So this is actually from his diary, as I was telling you earlier. He used to write a diary, when he was on the steamer boat. So this is something that he wrote actually a poem. He was in a way a poet also. He wrote a beautiful poem. And this is the translation of 2 lines of that poem. So I'll just read that. He's writing to Krishna. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. So he's writing about the people of America that he's going to meet. And he's saying, this message, when it will penetrate their heart, they will certainly feel happy. And then he says, "Oh Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance. Oh Lord, make me dance as you like." So Srila Prabhupada, he's saying, I am your puppet, Krishna. Krishna, I'm your puppet. You make me dance as you would like. I'm just here to do whatever you would like me to do. Just make me dance. I don't have my own personal agenda. Just do whatever you want to do to me. Just use me in your service. So this was his devotion. And then this is a small clip of from one of his lectures. So try to hear carefully.
Therefore, the real thing is bhaktya. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten fallen. But I have brought this thing for you. Please take. This will be accepted. Don't be perturbed. Always be careful. You are dealing with Krishna. That is my request. Thank you.
So you're seeing here, so much with so much feeling and love, he's saying this. That the real thing is really your bhakti, your devotion. The things that you may be trying to give to Krishna. Who cares? Krishna already has everything. The only thing that you can give is your devotion. And as he's saying this, he starts to cry. Because that was his mood. He was that. He was totally, completely, always in Krishna consciousness. And then finally, this is the last slide, a little bit about his final days. So after getting this huge success in terms of spreading spiritual knowledge, Krishna consciousness all over the world, he had established a total of 108 temples all over the world, traveled to basically every continent, every major city, continuously traveling, writing books throughout, meeting people throughout the day, writing books throughout the night. Finally, when he was in his last days, he came back to Vrindavan, and to leave his body there. And as you can see in this picture here, he is in Vrindavan, very, very emaciated, losing so much of his vigor, vigor in the sense he had lost so much muscle mass and things like that, but still always completely devoted to Krishna. And even in his last days, he did not give up his duty of translating Srimad Bhagavatam, because he knew that this is the most important book, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Even after he goes, if people will just read this book, they will be transformed. So even on his deathbed, he was still doing his work. So this is a small clip from that.
If we engage in devotional service, we get a different nature. And if we engage in the business of sense gratification, the result is different.
And then that karma is tad dehopalabdhi hetu.
Yeah. And according to the association of different nature, we get a body. Karanam gunasangasya satasat janmayoni. Therefore, we should always seek good association, devotee association.
Yeah. So there's more, but as you can see, even he's basically lying on his in his final days. He cannot move. He can hardly talk. He can hardly open his eyes. Still, he's translating Srimad Bhagavatam. So the devotee there, he's telling him the Sanskrit word to translate, and then Srila Prabhupada is giving the English translation. And even while he was giving the translation and the purport, he's also quoting, Sanskrit verses. Even at this point, this was his memory, and this was his dedication. Even until the last breath, he wanted to serve Krishna. He wanted to serve. So there is no end to how much we can get inspired by Srila Prabhupada. But these were just some of the things that I could speak in this amount of time. Sorry, I went a little over time, but I hope you got to know something about Srila Prabhupada and you were inspired. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you very much, Chahat sir. It was so enlightening and wonderful presentation that I did not realize that how time passed. So really, the way you started with the video, then you explain his complete biography, then very nicely you pick one aspect. And the aspect of devotion, the video which show, really, it was really amazing. And I would like to request all the participants, if you are really love this video, this presentation about this personality, so please share what are the things you like, what are the things you heard first time? Please briefly you mention about this in our WhatsApp groups. Really, that will inspire us also and to come up with such a really exciting topic. So thank you very much. I would like to, if somebody has some questions, then we open this session for question and answer session. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anyone would like to ask some question about?
Maybe it's not one of those topics where you have any questions, because it's all about getting information. Um, but yeah, I would suggest that if you have time, try to get to know Srila Prabhupada a little more. Everything. If you see any video of him, you will feel inspired. Any video, the way he's interacting with the devotees, the way he's speaking from Bhagavad Gita, all of this, on the way to Krishna that we are reading, Bhagavad Gita classes that we have, we are really trying to explain it just like Srila Prabhupada has done. He is the real source of this knowledge. I mean, Bhagavad Gita has been there for 5,000 years, but it really takes a genuine, pure devotee to explain it to us in the right manner, because there were hundreds of editions of Bhagavad Gita even before Srila Prabhupada. But now Bhagavad Gita, the edition by Srila Prabhupada, is the most widely read edition throughout the world. Why? Because of how he has explained it in his pure way. So there are obviously a lot of things on the internet about Srila Prabhupada you can read. And there is if you want to hear his lectures, there is a nice website called prabhupadvani.org. So all of his lectures are there. I try to hear them also. If you hear those lectures, it's a transformational experience. His lectures are always short, like half an hour, very, very transformational.
There is one question in chat.
Yeah. So Naren Rao is saying that, is it right to say that Srila Prabhupada's life is a very good example of faith? Yes, absolutely. His example, his life is a very, very good example of faith, because or conviction, I should say, because that is literally what caused everything. He had this faith, he had this conviction that this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita people will be able to accept even in the Western worlds, even though there was no evidence for such a thing. People had tried before them, they had all failed. Nobody wanted in the Western world to hear about Bhagavad Gita, but he had this faith that this knowledge is for everybody. It's not just for Indians. Bhagavad Gita is for everybody. He had that faith, he had that conviction, because he himself understood it so well. So therefore he came, and therefore he was successful. So yes, he was definitely a very good example of faith or conviction. Yeah.
What is the purpose? Hello, am I audible to you?
Yes. Praveen.
Hare Krishna, sir.
Hare
Sir,
Krishna.
what is the purpose of this world? Actually, I am a little bit stuck here. I would like to know why this universe is required. Why this universe exists? What is the purpose of this universe? What is the purpose of this universe?
Mm-hmm. So one thing is that there are two aspects of the universe. One is the spiritual aspect of the universe, and the other is the material aspect. So there is the spiritual world and the material world. So first thing is to understand that. And then now spiritual world always exists. Material world doesn't exist all the time. There is creation, maintenance, and destruction, and then it's a cycle. But spiritual world exists all the time. So it has always existed. But material world, it exists for a certain amount of time, and there is a good reason why it exists. The reason is so that people like us, who are not so much interested in serving Krishna, they can come here and they can enjoy independently of Krishna. So we were all initially in the spiritual world, but we had this idea that in the spiritual world the center is Krishna, but maybe we had this idea that I should be the center. I want to enjoy separately. So Krishna said, fine, if you want to enjoy separately, come to this material world, there you can enjoy. I won't be there. So therefore, we are in this material world. And in this material world, there are two kinds of facilities. One facility is for sense gratification. You can enjoy as much as you want. If you try, you can enjoy. That's the one kind of facility in the material world. The other kind of facility is that it will also provide you resources to realize that this material world is not the right place to be. You will get some unhappiness, you'll get some distress, some difficulties in life. And through those difficulties, you will realize that really what I want is always happiness, but why do I get these unhappiness? Why do I get these difficulties? Why is there's so much suffering in this world? So when you ask questions like that, you realize that, well, maybe this is not the right place for me. Maybe there is a better place. So let me try to inquire about that. And then you read Bhagavad Gita, and then you come to know that yes, there is a better place, which is really the place where respectable people should be there. The material world is really for people who just want to enjoy and suffer, but we don't want to suffer, right? So it provides the second facility is this correctional facility. It helps us to realize our true nature so that we can aspire, to be in the spiritual world. So that is the reason why the material world exists.
Yes, there is question from Adarsh Kumar in chat.
Okay, so he's saying he started his endeavor when he was in his 50s. How a person can have so much capacity in his old age? Yeah, that's a very good question. How can? Nobody, like right now, the life expectancy of people is, in the world, it's maybe 76, 77, right? And when Srila Prabhupada was there 50 years ago, then life expectancy overall was even less, with maybe 60 something, right? But he started his mission basically when he was 69 years of old age. So he knew he could die at any point of time. He was literally very much past the life expectancy. But so how did he have so much capacity? That is because the capacity that he had was not of his body. It was not material capacity. Materially, nobody has this capacity. The capacity that he had was spiritual. If we are really convinced, and if we are really want to serve, if we really have a strong connection with Krishna, if we really are a sincere devotee, then Krishna empowers such a person. So, I told you, Srila Prabhupada would sleep for 2 hours. Can anybody sleep for 2 hours every day? Nobody. So this is not something that is materially even possible. It is only spiritually possible. When you are at that level of spiritual realization, then Krishna is really taking care of you. Krishna is really giving you the capacity and the skill and everything. So yeah, it can only be possible through spiritual energy, not material. Yes. Good question, Adarsh.
Yes, thank you very much, Chahat sir. Really, it was so wonderful session that really we enjoyed. So as you mentioned that Srila Prabhupada was translating all this literature till his last breath. So we can, from this, we can understand that how important it must be that person is dedicated his complete time, complete nights, sleepless nights, just for this efforts. So daily morning we are reading his books from 6:30 to 6:30 we do this mantra meditation session, and 6:30 to 7 we read a book written by Srila Prabhupada. So do not miss tomorrow morning session. Please join with us, and also do not forget to write your feedback in our WhatsApp group. Hare Krishna. So I think we can stop here.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.